Hello everyone, it's great to have you here again. In this lecture, we'll be discussing the string type, which is one of the most crucial and frequently used types in programming. And as a programmer, it's essential to have a solid understanding of strings in C#. Throughout this course, we've used strings to store names and messages, so you should be familiar with them by now. Each of these string variables is an instance or object of the string class, which holds a sequence of Unicode characters. Okay, unlike the types we've mentioned so far, which were all value types, strings belong to the reference type category in the data types diagram. This is because strings are instances of the string class, and in C#, all instances created by a class are considered reference types. The reference type section houses various data types, including classes, and the string types falls under this category. In our next lecture, we'll provide an introduction to value types versus reference types. Alright. As mentioned, a string variable is an instance or object of the string class that holds text values. It represents a sequence of Unicode characters surrounded by double quotes. To declare and initialize string variables, there are various approaches we can use, as demonstrated in these examples. The first approach is to declare a string instance using the string class. The second approach employs the string keyword. And the last approach is to declare a string object using the var keyword, which is an implicit type variable. Although both the string keyword and string class can be used to declare string variables, the convention in C# is to use the string keyword because it's more concise and easier to read. It's important to recognize that, based on our discussion in the previous lecture about classes and objects, in these scenarios, the string class serves as a blueprint or template, while these string variables represent its objects or instances. Alright. A string object in C# has two properties, length and chars. The length property is used to determine the length of a string. It returns an int value indicating the number of characters in the string instance. In this example, the length property returns an int value of 10, indicating that the string Hello John has 10 characters. Similarly, for another string variable, message2, the length property returns a value of 11, representing the number of characters in the string Hello World. Alright. Before we delve into the chars property, it's essential to provide a brief explanation of arrays in C#, as a string object is essentially an array of char objects. In C#, an array is a collection of elements of the same type. Here are some examples of arrays in C#. In these examples, we first specify the element type, followed by square brackets and the variable name. Then, we use curly braces to enclose the elements that we want to store in the array. As you can see, the arrays contain elements of the same type, and they are separated by commas. Okay, in C#, to access each element in an array, we're using square brackets along with the index of the element we want to retrieve. In these examples, you're seeing now, first index holds uppercase letter H, second index holds lowercase letter e, and last index holds lowercase letter n. It's important to note that the index represents the position of the element within the array, starting from 0 for the first element. Alright, as mentioned earlier, a string object is essentially an array of char objects. Therefore, we can use an array of char objects to create a string object. In this example, we use the new keyword along with the string class and pass the char array as a parameter to create a new string object. This creates a new string object called myString that contains the same characters as the myArray variable, which is Hello John. Okay, we'll discuss arrays in more detail in a later section of the course. For now, all you need to understand is that an array is a collection of elements of the same type, and in C#, a string is essentially an array of char objects. Alright, now let's move on to the second property of the string class, which is chars. This property is used to retrieve the char object at a specified position in a string object. For example, here, we have a string variable called message with a value hello John. We can retrieve the first and second characters of this variable by these statements. In these statements, we access the first character of the message variable using the index 0, since indexing starts at 0 in C#, and the second character using the index 1. If we run these codes in VS Code, it will display the uppercase letter H and lowercase letter e, respectively, in the terminal. Alright. What exactly happened here, and what do these statements mean? Since a string is essentially an array of char objects, each character within the string has its own index. So, by using square brackets with an index value, we can directly access individual characters or char objects within the string. According to this, we can access any character of this string by its index using the chars property. For example, here, we access the 7th character of the message variable, which is uppercase letter J, using its index, which is 6. Alright, it's done. We'll meet again in the next lecture. Thank you for watching.